So this talk's going to talk through how we can actually use our DevOps processes today to reduce security risks. Some of it's using tools you already have, and some of it's kind of brand new to Puppet. As Ryan mentioned, I'm a product manager. I work at Puppet in their Belfast office, so there's a big engineering office just not too far from here, and that's where I'm based. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so if you want to catch me after the show, you can get me on LinkedIn. I'm going to cover a few topics today. Number one, kind of like, why are we still getting breached? Everybody knows about it. We all have the same problems, but as a community, we haven't worked it out yet. Second question is really controversial, deliberately, of why can IT ops not keep up with InfoSec? I've heard that question in my past roles, and you probably hear the same as well. Talking about my past roles, I'm going to cover, in reality, a use case for me personally on the application I used to manage and how we dealt with security, or how we didn't deal with security in the first place. And then I'm going to try and wrap up, giving you a couple of ideas of some recommendations on where to start if you haven't started, or how to scale up if you can do that. And finally, we're going to see if we can work together as a community to come up with any ideas on how we can kind of start solving this joint problem together. So it's a really shocking stat there at the top, is that 50% of businesses have been breached in the last 2 years. Recruiting cybersecurity professionals is really difficult today. It's also really difficult to recruit IT ops people who are experienced in this area. The complications there, it's just that finding vulnerabilities is getting better. There used to be vulnerabilities on a server in the corner. They sat there for years and nobody knew about them. The InfoSec team have great tools these days that can find those vulnerabilities that are hiding in the corner of your environments. Yet remediation, from our point of view, is still pretty manual. We still run tasks, we still have to write our own scripts, and everybody has the same vulnerabilities, yet we all still write the same scripts for our own businesses. The problem is that if you don't keep up to date, then you kind of end up with a breach, which is obviously unfortunate for some people, and you see it in the news every day. So I kind of believe what we need is better handovers between our teams. So we already have DevOps. We need kind of the work with the InfoSec team as well if you don't already work with them. Once you've kind of done that, we need to prioritize that workload, simplify it, filter it down to a manageable amount for IT ops, and then actually we need to take action on those reports, and we need to get the action quickly from once the vulnerabilities are found. So kind of as I'm going through this today, I want you to kind of think, how manual is your process today? How much can you remediate with tasks, or how much can you remediate automatically? And a good key there is, do you know the names of the people on your InfoSec team? If you don't, that's probably an indicator of how close you are. And what tools do they use? Get to know them, ask them for demos. So I mentioned there's a gap in the skills market. I just quickly Googled this earlier. There's one recruitment website, and it's for US jobs, and it had 25,000 cybersecurity jobs, and they paid between 80 to 130,000 US dollars. So decent jobs, just not enough people to do them. The other one is that the InfoSec team have recently been given automated vulnerability scanners, and they're great. They can find over 100,000 vulnerabilities in a couple of hours or maybe a week if you've got a bigger environment. Yet us in IT ops, we're still trying to fix most of that manually all the time, so we kind of need tools to help us speed up. What we want to try and do there is kind of have security kind of at the same speed as DevOps. So if your DevOps are releasing applications faster and faster than we ever have done before, while you're shipping that great product, we're also shipping vulnerability slightly quicker as well. So we need security to be automated as fast as we can automate our applications. But keeping up's difficult. This is kind of the recent CVE data. So there's a huge spike in vulnerabilities in 2017. More were found than ever before. And 2018 is not finished, yet we're almost at the same level. And if you look at the hockey stick, it's going up and to the right. So you kind of know as well as I do, a manual process cannot keep up with something that's going exponential. So we need to kind of start knocking these down kind of automatically. Hopefully this is starting to sound familiar, that you can kind of feel that some of this manual pain. Certainly I've experienced it in the past. Just think about how much manual work your teams still do, and how much automation you could do if they didn't have to do that anymore. So generally what happens is that the vulnerability remediation, if it's not critical, it just slips and it'll get tackled at some point in the future. So I'm making it sound kind of very simplistic, that you could just solve this, but it hasn't been solved. It is really, really complicated. Dev and Ops over the past few years have come together. InfoSec are still kind of separate from Dev and Ops. one of the points that I was reading the State of DevOps report that was published a couple of weeks ago. It's about a DevOps journey, and step one was standardizing your stack. That was for people who are starting on a DevOps journey, and the point was a standardized stack is good for DevOps, but a standardized stack is actually also good for security. So if you have less variation in your infrastructure, there's less of a range of vulnerabilities you need to be concerned about. The second kind of thing is about your organization structure. You'll generally find your InfoSec team and your DevOps team or your IT ops team, they won't meet until like an IT director or maybe even your CIO or your CTO. So they're kind of very separate, and that kind of creates either physical distance, or that you don't actually know each other that well. So it's good to kind of get to speak to them, learn their language. The InfoSec team speaks slightly different to IT ops. It's not overly complicated. They use a lot of acronyms, the same as what we do in IT ops. But once you learn them, it's kind of easy to talk to them, find out what their goals are, and generally their goals is the same as IT ops. They want to secure the business, and they want to make the business faster and more agile. They don't want to slow you down. When those barriers are created, my experience is that that gap between InfoSec and DevOps is solved with spreadsheets, Jira tickets, emails, and it's not a great way to communicate with each other. It's much easier to have something that's live and automated that helps you communicate. So I'm kind of preaching a bit there, so I'm going to expose my past and how I didn't deal with this. So I call it, this is the ostrich approach. Very important to read there. This is not how to remediate vulnerabilities. So my approach was we used to release an application and we were responsible to the business. The business wanted new features, they wanted new apps, and they wanted them fast. And we could give them features and apps really fast. The team was great, but we didn't really know who the InfoSec team were. We probably didn't really care that much who they were. And I just thought they were like so disruptive. So we just finished building our app, ready to push it. It's 1 week to the deployment. And the InfoSec team sends me a spreadsheet with about 40,000 rows in it. And I was like, why are you being so disruptive? You know I'm about to release this next week. But they didn't know. I didn't talk to them. They didn't know what our DevOps process was. I didn't know what their security process was. I was one of those people, I didn't know their name. I answered to the business. They answered to the CISO. So we kind of didn't do the same things. So what we kind of needed to work out was the InfoSec team wondered, like, why was I so angry that I was about to push code and they were trying to stop me? And they said, like, what are you doing with the work that I give you? We have a tech debt, or we used to have a tech debt epic in Jira. When the spreadsheet came in from InfoSec, we just attached it to a Jira ticket and go, I'll deal with that in change freeze. I'll come back to it at some point. Eventually we worked out why that's a problem. Luckily we never got breached. But you can kind of see how that would lead to a breach because the vulnerabilities were left in our environment for longer than they should have been. I said we got away luckily. Our web app didn't get breached. Obviously, you read the news. So every day, more and more companies are getting breached. It's about, on average, US dollars, about $4 million per breach to remediate it afterwards. And that includes getting in consultants and buying extra tools and doing the investigations. That works out at roughly about 141 US dollars a record. So if you think of the amount of records in your business, that's an easy way to kind of scale it up to give you a ballpark figure of how much a breach would cost. The other thing that's really, really unfortunate is that once you're breached, you're known as a soft target. So in the next 2 years, you're 28% more likely than any other business in your sector to get breached. And that's because the word gets out around the black hat community that how they get in and how other people could get in, and other people start testing your network. This is off, like I had a spreadsheet before that I used to keep news articles to try and put them together to do talks like this. I don't even bother with a spreadsheet anymore. I could just open the news and read it. So there's airlines and there's credit rating agencies and there's all sorts of things getting breached every single day. And in fact, there's a report I read recently. It was the Netherlands, which is appropriate for here. Netherlands was about 7th most globally when you scan it. Netherlands is about the 7th most vulnerable in the world. It's got to do with how many devices you have. It's not to do with how you ignore security, but it was interesting since it was coming to Amsterdam. So when it goes wrong, it's, well, one of the things that's on the news, it used to be your CTO that went on the news when you're breached, but now generally it's the CEO, and in a really, really bad breach, the CEOs sometimes leave or sometimes have to pay some sort of punitive action. That makes them a lot more interested in this and a lot easier for you to kind of show them why it's important. One of the key findings, though, from those investigations, so it's about 1 year on from the big credit rating agency, so it's great for me reading all the reports that come afterwards. Patch management and configuration management, they've said, would have actually noticed that the servers had drifted and that one of the certificates was out of date. There's a really, boiling it down to the most simple thing of that breach was an email list. So there's a distribution list for system administrators at thatcompany.com. The system administrator responsible for remediating Apache, the Apache struts vulnerability, had left. His replacement hadn't been added to the distribution list. So when the government, the US government, forwarded an email to the company to remediate that vulnerability, they forwarded it to the system administrator distribution list. The guy never got it. He wasn't on the list. So it's really, really easy. That's a simple thing, but it could happen to me. It could happen to any business. So we have a lot of work to do. It's about 320 hours of work for a large enterprise a week, remediation. That involves checking you've got the latest spreadsheet, prioritizing your workload, what's critical, what can wait to your patching cycle, and then filtering that down and assigning the work out to your teams. So it takes a lot of work. So when do you start? And then kind of what's the solution for that? Thing is, even once we'd remediated, if you've got bare metal servers, you kind of do know what exists, so generally you will know. But if you've got new businesses that you've expanded into, you don't always know what's there. So you think you've fixed everything, but there could be a server in the corner you don't know about. The one that's in this corner that IT ops don't know about, InfoSec probably also don't know about it, so it's not getting patched, it's not getting scanned. So you really do need to know what's in your network, because the ones that aren't patched and scanned generally are the ones that fall behind, become uncompliant, and they're kind of a weak point in your network. This was a great quote I stole from DEF CON this year. It's in Las Vegas in July. So the first point he made was about know your network. That was a great point for me. So know your network, you need to know what's there. The attackers don't really care that you've got a spreadsheet or a text file at every server in your environment. They just go and find what's really on your network and go and poke holes at it. So it was great. So I stole it. So shifting security left, I'm not going to dwell on that one. You've probably heard it a million times. Invite your security team in early in your process. Once you describe your projects to them, they can kind of understand what you're doing and they can give you advice. They can also give you advice on how best to remediate. So instead of always going to Stack Overflow or something like that to look up what to do, you can get the results from your scanning. The InfoSec team have the solutions in their tool. So you can go and download what the solutions are. Create, share, and automate tasks among your team. So you find your InfoSec team do loads of repetitive work. Some of our customers, they have to filter the spreadsheet before they give it to IT ops. I mean, that's a very, very quick thing for you to automate for them. The ops guys obviously know what the infrastructure is and what the importance of a server is, and the security team then can tell you what vulnerabilities are on it. So it's quite a formidable team if you invite security into DevOps. The good thing about that is it kind of removes the mystery. So back to my example, I didn't know what tool the security team used. I didn't know where that spreadsheet came from. Once I had a demo from them of what they were doing, it was really, really obvious to me how we could kind of interact together and talk more. And then we started just having the empathy where I could phone them up and have a chat and say I know you've sent me something that's really severe. I don't understand it. Tell me what it is. Explain it to me. And they did. And it was after that we worked better. And then the final point was to move on to community collaboration. So once you've kind of got your own house in order, it's really, really good to share with people best practices, because the response to one CVE is the same for every company. You've got variations within your environment, but it's generally going to be something along the same lines. So how do you get started on this journey? So I've tried to do a maturity model, which is some of the things you've probably seen a lot of times. So what I wanted to describe first was discovering your network. So knowing what's on your network is critical. If you don't know what's on it, you can't secure it. Then use pre-built tasks. So you've heard a lot about Bolt today. Look for tasks that other people have already written that can do that, or look for solutions that can kind of give you a quick drop down. So if it's day one in a new job, you don't know where all the scripts are, so you need something really, really simple to use, and reuse something that somebody else has used before you. Once you're comfortable at that, try and push up a wee bit and start to use tasks and write tasks yourself that you can share with either internally or externally. And that really, really helps us grow as a community and what we can remediate and how we can remediate quicker. So we're moving up to be more and more proactive. As we get to the right-hand side here, we're trying to get ahead of the InfoSec team, get things done before the InfoSec team tell us it needs done. So orchestrate tasks, we could only deploy patches and deploy our applications at the weekends or overnight. That's not going to change. The business was running during the day and they didn't want us to do that overnight. So schedule tasks, use an orchestrator. I mean, we have one in Puppet Enterprise. So schedule tasks there and let them run at the weekend or overnight and whatever your green zone is. And then finally get really ahead of the game. This is right on the right-hand side. This is being proactive. So if you use declarative management, I think most people here would use Puppet or Puppet Enterprise. Have regular compliance checks, have a regular patching cycle. That way, the more up-to-date your system is, the less likely you are going to fall behind on the versions that people have found are vulnerable. So that's stage 4, that's the advanced one, and that's kind of what I would recommend pushing for. So on top of that then, I would just say the problems I've discussed, I've moved kind of careers and then, as Ryan mentioned, kind of more recently to Puppet, and I really wanted to try and solve this. So at Puppet, what I've been working on, and I'm really excited to announce today, is the vulnerability remediation beta for Puppet Discovery. So this is what are we trying to think of how can we solve this as a group. So Puppet Discovery already exists today in Puppet. You can get a free trial. So you log into the Puppet Discovery, and on top of the existing scanners or the providers that's there today, we have added 3 security vulnerability scanners as providers of data into our platform. So that's Qualys, Tenable.io, and Rapid7. So in this example, I am going to set up a connection to my Qualys scanner. So I've given it a name, just something recognizable so I can remember which instance that is. In this case, it's just called a Belfast server, which is a nod to the team that built this. And then my username and password for Qualys. It's all cloud, so the URL's in the background there. I got brought to Puppet Discovery, so hopefully you've seen Discovery before, but if you haven't, there's loads of great details there, and Discovery will be included in this. So you can dive into your hosts, see what hosts are there if you want to dive into your packages, or even go down into your containers if you're using containers at the moment. On the left-hand side, I change from the menu and jump into vulnerabilities. And this is the data that my InfoSec team have been giving me. So compare this and take a second to think, what do you get today? Do you get a spreadsheet or a Jira ticket or an email? I find this nicer. The most important one to point out is what I call the top 5. It's on the top right there. That's ranked. The most critical vulnerabilities in my environment that affect the most hosts is at the top of that list. So basically just multiply those 2 together, get you a score, and that one comes top. That's a really simplistic way of prioritizing them. So if I have 2,000 hosts or 2,400 hosts in that example to remediate, where do I start? So if I'm a hospital, I would start with the operating theater and I would leave the printers till the end. Or if I'm a financial exchange, I can start with obviously the trading applications and leave the developers' laptops till the end. So that all comes from the tagging, which is just down the bottom. So you can tag your hosts if you haven't already tagged them. And then you can rank your tags and tell us which tags are the most important. And we will bubble those tags to the top of the list, and you can fix your business critical systems first. The third final thing to point out on the dashboard is the couple of insights. So we haven't finally decided on these, but the top one there is new vulnerabilities in the last 24 hours. So in this example, 39% of mine are critical. So that means I'm going to have a really, really busy day today fixing those. The bar chart then is if you're split by Windows admins and sysadmins, it will let you split the work between your teams. We heard loud and clear from the IT ops community that the security team do a great job and find all the vulnerabilities, and then IT ops have to filter that sometimes before they start to work on it. So we're going to try and let you reduce noise. It's right that the security team do tell you all the vulnerabilities because it's generally on IT ops who own the servers to decide is that vulnerability applicable or not. So you can snooze them. So if you've mitigated a vulnerability some other way, the service is stopped or you have put a firewall around it, snooze it. So you snooze it, you just type in the reason that you're snoozing it and for how long it should be snoozed for. Then we will hide that from the dashboard. In the background, we'll record who snoozed it, when they snoozed it, for how long, and why. Then you can give that report to an auditor. If the auditor asks, why did you not fix that vulnerability? And then the second point is the patching cycle. So back to the maturity model, we mentioned stage 4, you generally do have a patching cycle in place. So you've got good configuration management, you've also got good patching cycles. So say I patch every 30 days my Linux servers, and anything below, the SLAs I have is that anything below, say, severity 7 can wait till the end of the month, till my patching cycle. So tell us your patching cycle, say it's 30 days and severity 7 and below, you're happy to leave them to your patching cycle. They get hidden from the dashboard. So what's on the dashboard is just vulnerabilities you need to do something about, and you're not going to pick them up in the future. If that's still there after 30 days, we will bring it back up and flag it to you that there's probably a package in your environment that you didn't know about and is not covered in your patching cycle. So just add it to your cycle. And then this list should get shorter and shorter as time goes on. Another use case I wanted to resonate, that kind of heard a lot, was about celebrity vulnerabilities hit the news. So you hear about Heartbleed, you hear about WannaCry, and the first thing is one of your executives is drinking their coffee, they hear it, and they walk into work and they say to us in IT Ops, are we affected? And your answer generally in my case was, I don't know, ask security. And he goes, you own the servers. so that's not a great answer to give him, and I didn't like doing it. So you want to be able to search. So you search for whatever that CVE ID is, and the next screen will kind of show you how exposed we are. So immediately I can give him a report and tell him, hey, yeah, that we don't need to worry, or we do need to worry. So I'm going to jump into the IT Ops details, which is done by clicking on one of the items in the top 5. So in this one, my exposure, just to finish that story, is 41%. So in this case, I'm in bad shape. So I can tell my CTO or whoever asked me that I'm in bad shape. I probably need extra people to help me. We're going to get this solved today. As well as that exposure score, I've also got the details I need. And I want to get an IT Ops, I want to get to remediation fast. And that's what this tool is focused on, remediation. So what I need to know what the summary of the vulnerability is, just so I have some background. And importantly, I need to know the solution, which is on the screen. So that's pulled directly from your vulnerability provider. Some more details about what the CVE score is this really bad or not? And then down the bottom of that screen, we show you which hosts are affected. So this vulnerability affects those hosts at the bottom, and it's separated by Windows and Linux again, and other. So if you want to focus on just one part of your infrastructure, you can do that. So you know what the solution is and what hosts are affected, so now you need to take action. If you still have change control, you can export that list of hosts and attach it to your change control process, and then get that described of what you need to do. If you have already got approval or you don't need approval to do this, you can jump straight into running a task. So I'm going to imagine I have something very severe in my environment, something that I want to stop the service immediately. So I'm going to stop Apache. There's other things I could do. I could manage a package, so I could upgrade a package. So kind of tying back to what we saw on Bolt earlier, I could upgrade a package. I could install a package or uninstall one as well if someone's installed something I don't want on there. The other thing is if I need to get out a jail-free card, I can use command execution. So when you're on stage 2 of the maturity model, start writing your own tasks and run an executable from here. So this one it's very simple. When you see going from command line to UI, so this action I'm going to perform here is stop on Linux, and the package I typed in was Apache 2. I can pick the hosts. The reason I wouldn't maybe want to stop the service on every host affected is that I might own them all, or I might know the business context of them all. So just pick the host you want to stop it on. And in this example, I just stopped it on one host in our test environment. So review it just before I run it. So it's going to run a stop. It's going to stop Apache 2. It's going to use my key, and it's going to run on the host I've listed up there. So I'm going to run it. It runs, you get a message that says running, and successful at the end, so I can see Apache 2 has been stopped on that host. So that buys me time. It's stopped. I can go away and remediate it more thoroughly, or go back and run another task to remediate it even more before restarting it. So that's it, and then kind of on to the next one, and just work your way through the list like that. So you can see it's kind of bringing the entry level of the skills that you need to remediate down to kind of a more common playing field. So what I kind of wanted you to stick with today was just know your current network. It's important. Simplify handovers between your dev, sec, and ops team. Remove the mystery between you, and then continuously improve your remediation steps. So just automate one task to free time to automate some more. I will be on the Slack channel, so you can join and go to Puppetize Live. I'll be on there to answer any questions. If you want to keep up to date with product updates, hit that URL, puppet.com/vulnerability remediation. Put in your email address, and we'll keep you up to date sort of every month or every 2 months on the progress of this product as it comes out. It's currently in private beta. Thank you.